Chapter 4 looks at developing objectives and designing a curriculum. In this chapter, we have 4 objectives. The first is to learn how to write training objectives that are observable, measurable, attainable, as well as specific. The second objective is to organize training curriculum according to the principle of chronological order. The third objective is to organize training curriculum according to the principle of let's teach a simple skill before a complex skill. And last but not least, we're going to look at how do we teach a skill by telling it, showing, inviting, encouraging, as well as correcting. The first thing that we want to look at as you all prepare to create your training are 2 things. The first is a training goal. It's the general statement about what you want to accomplish. Make sure that you're taking notes to ask your group members about how you all plan to attack your particular topics. The first thing is, what is our overall goal for our training session? The second are training objectives. These are a precise, specific outcome that you're trying to achieve during your training session. I want you guys to reflect on all the classes that you have taken. On the first page of your syllabus, there are stated objectives. How many of you all really sit and review the objectives at the start of the class? Okay, what about during the midterm exam? Okay, what about at the end of the class? How many of you all look at your training objectives? Now, some of you all will say, yes, Dr. Murray, I look at my training objectives to make sure that at the end of the class, I have obtained not only a grade that I feel that I was satisfactory in earning, but I looked at the training objectives to make sure that I actually accomplished all of the goals that my instructor looked for in the class. Or other people are saying training objectives, what are those? I just take a course. We want to make sure that we take time to look at training objectives in every course that we take to ensure that we are accomplishing the overall goals of the course. And we know that the goals lead to our training objectives. When we're working on training objectives, there are 4 things. The first is an objective must be observable, something that we could see. You could verify that the desired behavior did or did not occur. The second is the objective measurable, meaning can we assess how accurately or effectively that behavior was performed? Third is the objective attainable, meaning if we have a 16-week class or if we have an 8-hour training session, can we actually accomplish the goals of the training during this time? And then last but not least, is the objective specific? Meaning, do people understand the criteria based on specific guidelines that describe what the trainee should do? Here I want you to take a moment and look at a few examples. The topic is teamwork, or positive work environment, or positive rewards. And these are 3 examples of objectives. The next is conflict resolution. We'll look at these objectives and we look at to explain at least 5 basic principles of empathetic communication to handle conflict. Is that objective measurable? Is it attainable? Is the objective specific? And if so, how? Go through and look at all the objectives on the next few slides and look at the topic and see, does it match? Here, I want you to pause the video and take a moment to complete this activity. The topic is effective coaching. The first objective is to plan 5 strategies to give frequent verbal and nonverbal encouragement and rewards. Take out 2 key points of effective coaching and create 2 objectives. We will discuss these 2 objectives in class. Creating training objectives. As you are completing those 2 objectives on effective coaching, I want you to discuss with your group members how you came to understand how to write objectives. And at this moment, I want everyone to take an opportunity to compile a list of group objectives based on that topic. We're now going to move on to designing a curriculum. So, we've already established that when you are looking at creating a training, you have to have a session goal and you have to create training session objectives. So you've taken a moment to actually create 2 session objectives, and you've had a discussion with your group mates on how they came to create those objectives, and you're prepared to discuss those objectives in class. And now we want to move forward to creating a framework for content for the training session and creating the assessment plan to determine if the training session met the goals and the objectives. So, training session goals. What are the purposes of my training program? Why do I think these purposes are worth including in the training program? Think about the organizations that you've created and think about the problem. What is the purpose of my training program based on that problem? How are these purposes best accomplished in the context of my audience with my trainees? Next, you want to create training session objectives. What objectives should trainees meet at the end of each session that will take me to my goals? Think about how many sessions each learner will need in order to accurately reach your training goals. And from there, you create objectives such as. The next is to create a framework. How can I best conceptually organize the content of my session? What will make sense as I am teaching my learners? What type of learners do I have? What are their learning styles? And how will this material impact their learning styles? You want to think, how do I teach a skill in chronological order? So let's say if I began this class talking about presentation skills, but I mentioned nothing about the purpose of training, the steps to create an effective training, that would not be the most efficient way to help you all design a curriculum. You need to think, what do trainees need to know? And what's the most important information, and how can I build upon that information? The next, you want to teach simple skills before more complex skills so that trainees can build on their skills and think about how they can build on that knowledge. When you're teaching a skill, you want to think about these 5 elements. Tell the trainees what you want them to do. Show the trainees the skill by performing or demonstrating. Invite the trainees to perform the skill. Encourage the trainees by pointing out what they are doing correctly before what they are doing wrong. And then correct the trainees by offering specific suggestions for improving their performance. The skill that I want us to reflect on is how to create a task analysis. A, tell the trainees what you want them to do. Draw how to make toast. B, show the trainees the skill by performing or demonstrating. In an instant, if we had a toaster in our classroom, I would show you all how to make toast. C, invite the trainees to perform the skill. Role play, case study, simulation, or group or individual practice. In the case of the toast, you had individual as well as group practice. Encourage the trainees by pointing out what they're doing correctly before offering what they are doing wrong. And then correct the trainees by offering specific suggestions for improving their performance. One way we want to think about making each lesson successful is having 3 elements. The first is a set induction. It's a technique that helps trainers get ready to learn. If you think about our brief 5-minute conversations at the start of class, that's an example of a set induction. I prepare you all to learn by talking about current events that are relevant, talking about course material, but not diving deep in. The second is motivation to learn. what needs will be met by the training. So sharing the objectives or sharing how this information relates. And then finally, a closure. Reminding trainees this is what they learned throughout the session and this is what they should expect moving forward. I hope that this has been extremely helpful when you're thinking about how to prepare the training. Don't forget to bring those 2 individual objectives to class as well as your group objectives. Thank you.